What's up, Brian?
Boom. What's happening?
Nothing. It's time for tequila.
Oh, one of them Thursdays, huh?
Well, what did I have yesterday? I had the Old Forester um, rye yesterday when I was having my union negotiating meeting.
Oh yeah, I forgot you were the man for that. How's that
Yeah,
treating you?
I'm the union president for my chapter, and
So who's the Muscadine Guru that we're meeting today?
oh, that's Jeffrey Stewart. Jeffrey was the lady I met when we went to Vesta in
Okay,
in in Missouri, and um, she number one, she just got her PhD, and her PhD is actually on. Um, she investigated the level of resveratrol that's in muscadine grapes because she discovered that there's higher levels in muscadine than in vinifera.
really?
Yeah, and because the skins are thicker,
I guess that
and
makes sense.
and the skins are thicker, and the actual fruit is larger. So you have bigger berries and thicker skins. And so she is literally trying to create a database of muscadine grape growers. I think a number of reasons why winemakers are really not into muscadine is because they're still considered somewhat wild and uncultivated in the South, but there are several vineyards that are literally cultivating them like they do vinifera. Um, the one that Jeffrey always talks about, and she'll probably mention tonight, is in Tennessee. It's called Solly Notch, where they literally make a sparkling wine out of muscadine. They do a number of vinifera and muscadine blends. Most people look at muscadine because the majority of them are on the sweeter side, but
Hmm.
there are a number of winemakers that have been able to um, master making drier muscadine wines that are actually palatable.
Is it a cold hardy plant
No,
or okay.
not at all. It is one of those things that they always say in the South they just grow, and
Hmm.
there's no rhyme or reason. But what Jeffrey is really trying to create is the the information as to what will happen if you start to actually select the soils to grow certain muscadine in.
Hmm.
And because right now they're just wild grapes in most places. And
And
she's
are they by
saying
the river at all in those places? By the
a lot of
Mississippi?
times they're by water sources, but it's
Yeah.
wherever it's basically hot and humid. Um, what is it? I think there's a ton in Mississippi. There's some in Louisiana. They're in Alabama. Um, there's some in Tennessee.
I
Um,
wonder if they have disease pressures like molds and funguses that they have to worry about.
not not much, not much, because her whole thing is that the majority of muscadine vineyards are are really they're not maintained like in most cases you'd be maintaining a vinifera vineyard.
Hmm.
Um, and her thing is what would happen if you literally started to was it one of the what is it? One of the species is called scuppernong, and the bottom line is there are a number of different species right now, and so her thing would be we need to really look to see is there a particular soil type that scuppernong thrive in.
Where did it come from? Where did the I mean, it's not indigenous, right?
It's probably the most indigenous to the Americas, because what they're saying is, if I'm not mistaken, I've got to double check my facts, and Jeffrey will let us know. But a lot of the vines that were phylloxera resistant were these vines.
Hmm.
And hold on one second, I've got a book here that she turned me on to. Okay. Nah. Okay. Foundations of American Grape Culture. And the author is Thomas Munson. And Thomas Munson, I want to say he had a vineyard. I want to say it's in Texas. So
Texas is hot. It's not humid, but it's hot.
yeah, hot and humid, but it's temperature. But there's, like I said, Mississippi. Well, no, down around Houston is humid. Down around the Gulf Coast is humid.
Okay.
But here in this book, you're talking about amethyst, Delaware grapes. But he was, yeah, and they're talking about the Lambrusca, Vitis Lambrusca.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it is. So that's certainly the indigenous species nomenclature. So that's interesting, because I have always thought that the two indigenous grapes are Niagara and Concord, but Muscadine is added to the list now.
Yeah. Well, if I'm not mistaken, those are Vitis Lambruscas, if I'm not mistaken. But
They are.
Muscadine, I don't know if it's part of the Lambrusca genus or not, but it's not far. And but Munson is like, if you want to do a deep dive into the native grapes, Munson is the dude.
Okay. So is it foxy, like hybrids?
Well, that's what they're because the hybrids are getting their foxiness from those indigenous grapes. And
Mm-hmm.
what it is with certain winemakers is they've learned over the generations how to get that foxiness out, what not to do. And a lot of times it has to do with, again, how long is this stuff sitting on those skins?
Oh, so it's not crossing it with a different variety. It's the actual process that's making it foxy.
Yeah. It's the actual, it's the grape itself, I think, has that foxiness to it, but it's a situation where, like, was it? It's like Catawba. You can get some Catawbas that have a foxiness to them, but then you find some Catawbas that literally it's not there at all. And I think it has a lot to do with how they're vinified. And that's the skill that needs to be, and that's the reason why I'm trying to get, maybe it's going to be experimental, and it might not even become extremely popular before I leave this earth. But one of the things that I'm noticing is that it's a lower barrier of entry to get into muscadine grape wine production, but you can do a number of other things because they're making whiskey out of it. They're just making, and again, I'm looking at it as we're talking about this non-alcoholic thing. Muscadine grape juice is not only healthy for you, it's non-alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was the one thing that working with Jeffrey, she's trying to find all the different ways of utilizing muscadine, not just for winemaking purposes. So
that was one of my next questions is are they making spirits out of it?
Oh yeah, there's God, who is that? Somebody is making a whiskey. Um, it's actually a barrel aged whiskey, but they're making something that would be, you could say, it's similar to grappa um, with muscadine. Um, so yeah, they're doing a little bit of everything. But it's that typical thing. It was backwoods. You took what you had, and you made stuff with it, and I put it this way: it's similar to, you know, it's probably not to the level of what's going on in Georgia in actual um, the Georgian wine thing with the quivery, but when you think about it, that's what these people were doing in the backwoods. They were just harvesting
Yeah.
these muscadines, crushing them, letting them sit on the skins and ferment, and saw what happened.
Yeah.
And there's actually a number of there are a number of YouTube videos on making muscadine wine.
The next big hit, Muscadine. I'm gonna hit Ken up just
Hold
because.
on, there's Ken. There's Ken.
What? Ken ain't on here yet. It's too early.
Yeah, because she hit me up last night to ask whether or not it was a live stream or if it was recorded. I said, no, we're recording. We're not. We're because that's the one thing that we can literally do on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I recommend we at least do one sometime in the next couple of months.
I agree. And
I
so
agree
that's where I
too.
was going. What's up, Ken?
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on, Ken?
Oh man, still crying about Monday with
Yeah. The
that
bad
team
guys
down the
won.
road. That
Mhm.
team down the road and winning the national championship.
They cheated. You know they did.
I know.
Oh no,
I'm sure
those
Conor Stallions was somewhere in the building.
and the yep. I just let Jeffrey on. Yeah, so I had fun for my first couple of years out of law school, but then I
Hey
realized,
guys, how are you?
hey
Hello.
Can y'all
Hey,
sis,
hear
how
me?
are you?
how are you?
Doing good. Welcome to Alabama, y'all. How you doing?
Hello.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
How are y'all?
Doing
Good.
Hey,
How
good.
are you?
Doing
listen.
good, doing good.
Oh, welcome to the back porch. You know, if you in the South, they invite you to the porch. You in good company.
All
How
right.
y'all doing?
We're doing all
Thank
right.
you. Thank you for the
Yeah.
invite. I get to be country because I'm a country girl and I get to do muscadine, and so that's one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's why I asked you to come on because I think this may be one of our because everybody's into Vitas, everybody's into Vitas vinifera, everybody's into Chardonnays and Pinot Noirs and Cabernets, and they need to learn about the the indigenous grapes to the Americas. And I
Mm.
did not know. I mean, I put it this way: I only knew one person I was going to ask, and that's my little sister Jeffrey from Alabama. Where you from again?
I'm from Alabama. How y'all doing? Hey, look, I,
so
I like
so
I
what
got. I don't know if y'all can see all this, but
Oh yeah, that's a
you
beautiful
know, in the
spread.
South, everything has to be pretty. So look. I connected on my phone too because I was like, I want them to have the experience of being on the back porch in the South where you can hear the look. I'm gonna join as Dr. Jeffrey, so I'm in two places at one time. Finally.
so where are you in Alabama, Dr. Jeffrey?
I'm in North Alabama, Northwest Alabama. I'm in Northwest Alabama, so about 35, so about 35 miles north of downtown Birmingham.
Okay.
Okay.
very far at all. So you get real country 35 miles outside for me.
And so, is that where you're from? Is that where you landed? What? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us, because we, of course, full transparency, you're on our podcast. Welcome to the Two Guys Tasting Podcast, Dr. Jeffery Stewart. And we'd like to learn more about you. So let's start with, where you are from, how you landed where you are currently, how you were turned on to Muscadine and decided to make your life story around Muscadine.
Oh, wow. So
it's a
long, I'm going to make it a shorter story than the longer version. But so my dad's family is from Huntsville, Alabama.
Yeah.
And my mother's family, they're transplants from South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather, which is my mom's dad, he got a contract to do work. So they moved to Huntsville. My mama married the boy next door, literally. My dad was an only child. He used to hang out with her brothers. And so anyway, they had this fabulous family and moved to Dothan, Alabama, which is where I grew up and where I graduated from high school. And so from there, that was my first experience with muscadine, is because when you live out in the country, because if you know anything about Dothan, Alabama, it is the peanut capital of the world. I don't care what anybody else says, and we got a peanut festival and fair to prove it. We were outside a lot. If you grew up in the times when I did, outside raised you. And so we used to climb the fences and trek through the woods, and we would find these muscadines. And so you didn't care if you were going to get a whipping, because we wanted to get these plums and the muscadines. And if we get back in time, they won't even know we were gone. So my biggest concern about muscadine is that it is really a heritage plant. It has a lot of culture for us in the South. And with all of the different sprays, with the climate, with the loss of it being a very intimate fruit for us now, because children aren't going outside, and we don't even have as many hunters here as we used to from the South. You just have fewer people hunting now. Then you also don't have the preservation of the vegetation that's here. Alabama, lots of people don't know, they have more varieties of trees and plants in the state of Alabama than they do in all of Europe combined. So that's huge for me. And I worked in the Department of Conservation prior to getting here. So, my resume is pretty long. I've been in school pretty much my whole life, my entire life. And so when you grow up down in Dothan, Alabama, you're close to Tuskegee, you're close to the dream, really, of George Washington Carver, because he was the first to just sort of push peanuts. And then he convinced all the people to grow these peanuts. And then it was like, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do with these peanuts? And so he developed all of these products. And so he was, one of my first inspirations outside of my family. My grandmother was probably my first inspiration as a scientist, because she was very regimented. Kitchen was everything so-so. The refrigerator was so-so. And just very meticulous about things. So just that huge influence of having George Washington Carver ever present in the background, and Tuskegee being like 2.5 hours away, was big for me. But I ended up going to Talladega College, which is the first and the oldest HBCU in the state of Alabama. It was formally founded in 1867, but really it initially started in 1865. And that institution is near and dear to my heart. It is one of the greatest places in the universe. It is the Alpha Laura Vega of them all. You have lots of great people who came from there, and the list is long, so I won't do the history of Talladega, but they generated some great scientists there, and they pushed us. It was very taboo to go to summer school when you were in college, and it was preferred. It was pushed. It was encouraged for us to do research. So I always wanted to do research and teach, after I realized there were a lot of my colleagues that were they were struggling in this class. We started off with like 100 and something students that were biology majors. They were going to be doctors and pharmacists, blah, blah, blah. Man, that first test, it went down to 50. The second, our freshman year went down to like 40. And so I thought, I could make one good doctor, or I could create lots of doctors, nurses, pharmacists, things like that. So I decided that I wanted to be a researcher as opposed to being a medical doctor or anything like that. And so I had my first experience with research through Talladega College, just lots of exposure there. But as life goes, you can end up with a different journey than you planned out. And so my journey included I became a mom while I was in college. I got drafted to the league. So that was really important for me. And then my parents passed away that same year that my son was born. So it was just very pivotal. And so I had to pivot to do other things that were away from what I had planned. So I got a master's in biology to teach adults. And so I was 23, 24 when I got my master's. Nobody wanted a 23, 24-year-old in front of the room. So I remembered Dr. Jan Ann Jenner. She was my freshman biology instructor at Talladega. She said, sometimes you have to take a really weird job before they'll really hire you for what you want to do. And so I got on the state registry for Alabama, and I went into the interview with my Casper suit on and my French manicure and my, Liz Claiborne pumps, and I was ready for the boardroom, and they were looking at me because I had applied for a fisheries biologist position. And so I had not done fisheries biology, and they were looking at my manicure and my heels and my pump. I mean, I was together. And they said, "Okay, can you draw a map?" I'm like, "A map? Can you read a map? Can you drive?" Yeah. And I got the job. I was the highest ranking person who applied for that job. I had a master's degree. I'm killing the beast. And I was scooping fish. I was scooping fish, chest waders high. I mean, I was doing it out there. And I have, because of that job, I've seen all 67 counties in Alabama. I've worked with wildlife. I've been out with the game wardens. I've been on Smith Lake. I've been on many of the waterways in the state of Alabama. And so I got a lot of hands-on experience with fisheries because a lot of mine was theory and invertebrate so, and those kinds of things. But it gave me a greater appreciation for my state, and it exposed me to lots of different things, lots of connections, lots of training. But that wasn't where I really desired to be for my career. And I can say that the state of Alabama was very generous to me. They were extremely kind. They knew that I wanted to teach. They allowed me to take a adjunct position 3.5 hours away at Southern Union State.
Allowed you.
Hey, listen, because they allowed me to use my my state time my comp time to go work for another state agency. And so you have to do a lot to get this approved. And so they literally did that paperwork for me to get that approval, to get the experience so that I could teach and give some visibility to the Department of Conservation and Freshwater Fisheries. It was really cool. And so I was up here in Walker County, Alabama, working at the Carbon Hill Fish Hatchery, and it was formerly a federal fisheries hatchery where they grew different types of fish, and then they hauled them all over the country. They would do trout, and they did a lot of northern fish down here, walleye, that kind of thing. You don't see native here, but the fisheries in Alabama, they do native fishes like bluegill, brim, shell cracker. We had a crappie program. We had blue channel catfish. We had largemouth bass. We had, just those types of fishes that we would restock our state waterways, and we had a pond stocking program. Anyway, I eventually landed in the community college system where I taught for about 3 years. And a buddy of mine, he said, Jeffrey, he said, he came to visit me down in my office. His name is Maurice Jackson. He's over in Arkansas now, big fisheries guy with the state of Arkansas. And he's like, wow. He said, this is a great place. He said, but you know what? I just see something bigger for you than this. He said, this is great, but he said, I just keep seeing something bigger for you. So I just feel like, the universe always places me with these big brothers that had these great visions. Chuck, for me. So, but different from Chuck, he was an alpha, but I could dig it.
I can't, but we're okay.
It's okay. It's okay. But shout out to Maurice Jackson. But he was like, Jeffrey. So I applied for this new program that the University of Alabama at Birmingham had. And if you're unfamiliar, we say UAB, we just think everybody knows. But if you don't know, then it is like one of the premier research institutions in the nation, and really globally. They had a program where they were only accepting 40 students, and I think they had several hundred people that applied for 40 seats for the integrative biomedical sciences program. And I got in, and I did all this work, this training. I started off as a pathology student, and then they were like, whatever lab you land in, you're going to have to go with a mentor. So my mentor was a medical doctor. He is a medical doctor. He was working in pediatrics. He was looking at brain injury, periventricular leukomalacia, that's caused by low oxygen levels, creates these holes in the brain. So I'm actually a trained neurobiologist, and a clinical pathologist, really, because we did all these studies that would indicate whether, how the cells were signaling for all these things. It's really crazy. But there was a class that I took. This is really how I got to Muscadine. I know it's a long talk, but
this is why we're here.
Oh, okay. So I took this course called The Mitochondrial Basis for Human Diseases with a premier researcher, Dr. Shannon Bailey. She was very inspiring for me. And she was looking at how the mitochondria, which is the energy generator for each living cell, if you're a complex cell like a eukaryote, plant or animal. And she was looking at how the dysfunction in these organelles were indicative of different types of disease. They were indicators. Like if you see challenges in the mitochondria, then you can sort of look over here and correlate that there's an issue, there's a disease issue. So you can see diabetes, glucose, you can see lipid dyslipidemia, fatty liver disease, those types of things. And we had to do these research papers, like they were really intensive. When we say research paper on the doctoral side, it's not research paper like high school. Like it is, you're creating, manifesting, you're pulling all these things together. And so I looked at resveratrol from red wines and how it was impacting cardiovascular health, how it was regenerating cells and even rejuvenating them, improving mitosis, which is the repair and growth process for cells. And so I was really impacted, moved on from that course for several years. And then the lab that I was in, it ran out of money. It ran out of research money. Grants didn't get funded.
Oh, wow.
And it's devastating when, you're a doctoral student who has finished all the qualifying coursework and you sort of have to pivot. So that's been the story of my stay on your toes, pivot. Good thing I love basketball because I learned a lot from that game because you gotta pivot. And it was really heartbreaking. I left one lab, I went into another lab, went into another lab, went into another lab. So there's like 4 different rotations of trying to find somewhere to land and to finish a doctorate and couldn't get it done. And you have a choice to either leave the program with a master's or just take your credits and bet on black.
Yeah, well, and hope that they all transfer, right? Yeah,
right.
That's gotta be
Yes.
Oh,
one of those
hey,
things.
listen, and it was devastating to learn that out of 140 credit hours at the highest level possible, at UAB. Those were some extremely rigorous tests. Like it was almost diabolical because they graded on the standard deviation. So if the average was an 84 or a 90, and you can only make a B to pass in a graduate level course. And people thought they were passing. And then when you get to the end of the course and because they waited till like they let you see per test and then you get to the end. And then that's when you knew whether you were going to be taking that class again or having to make some other decisions. Um, and I did well. I mean, you can't whoop me with a book. That's all I'm gonna say. My mama said, if you can read, you can do anything. If you can read, you can do anything, Jeffrey. You don't need me for that. And she was a tough lady. And so I thought, okay, this is good. I can whoop a book. I already know how to do this. But you have the challenges with the lab dynamics, especially when funding is an issue. And it was for me. And so I had to leave and go back to work. And I landed at a couple of different institutions, but one of the ones that impacted me the most was at Miles College. It's actually in Fairfield, just not too far from UAB. And I met a guy there named Dr. Charles Woods. And I had seen him in the paper years earlier about grants that he had gotten funded and brought to Miles. And I was so inspired. I was like, oh man, that's so interesting. And I remember I'd been teaching there with him for a while, and he said, "Hey, Stewart, come here." I was like, "Yeah," and he said, "You got too many credits. You got too many credits right here. Like, you need to finish this." And I was just devastated at this point. Hey, look, I'm like, I'm trying to keep this mortgage paid and feed this kid. So,
Right.
yeah, sir. And just I was like, I'm not gonna do it. But he was a Kappa. Who had graduated with his doctorate from the Alabama A&M University, and like my favorite cousin, who's also a Kappa, my cousin had pledged this guy, so he was gonna get me back, I thought. So there was like a family connection there, and so again, here comes the big brother, and now it started the foreshadowing. The Kappa yeah. So he said, you need to finish this degree. So he didn't tell me where to go, but he did sort of. He was like, "Yeah, I know your family is from Huntsville. Your cousin, he pledged me Alabama A&M University. They have blah blah blah." But that was outside of my wheelhouse because I do biomedical research, and they're over here doing ag science, plant stuff. And he was like, "You need to take a look." And so I'm looking. Okay, I'm gonna look at Meharry. Meharry told me they would take Meharry Medical School told me they would take 9 credit hours out of 140. And I was like, hey, but I got my biochemistry class for 10 credit hours. If I'm transferring anything, that's what are we doing with that other credit?
Right.
And so, you have to keep a positive spin on all the things, because if you don't, you can just be devastated out of a dream. And I don't recommend that for anybody. Like, if it's something that you want. My mama said, I know I sound like, what's his name? What a boy. He was from the South,
Bobby
too, but that's
Boucher.
My mama said, she said, she would say to you, and by the way, her name was Sylvia Stewart. She was so funny. She was, look, I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, I don't remember her telling any jokes, and my dad could make her so mad. He would just call her whole name. He'd say, Sylvia Stewart. And, to nobody else, it doesn't seem so much, but he was letting her know that he had changed her name. She wasn't the same person. And she would be so mad sometimes when she would win in that argument. And so she would tell us, she said, don't take the first no that you get from anybody. She said, she said, they're telling somebody yes. She said, you hang on until you get a yes from them. And she would say, do you want whatever it is we were from? She said, well, I tell you what, she said, you sink your teeth into it like a bulldog and hang on to it until you get what you want out of it. And so she taught us to be very persistent. And I hugged that thing. And when Dr. Woods was saying, you need to finish, I could hear her saying, do you want this thing? You have to sink your teeth into it like a bulldog and don't let go until you get what you want. And I was like, Bulldogs, Alabama A&M Bulldogs. So I was like, okay, yeah, maybe this is a sign. And I'm gonna tell you, my first visit there, it was sort of chilly. Uh, Dr. Woods made some inroads for me. He introduced me to Dr. Anthony Overton, who was the department chair of biological and environmental sciences. And so I got recruited, and they made some changes in the graduate school, and they took 24, the most of anybody, 24 credit hours from me. And I think since, a lot of schools are probably changing how many, when students move from doctoral programs, how many hours they're going to take. But Alabama A&M University said that they would take 24 credit hours from me transferred in. And that was huge. That was a huge dimension. And so I started off initially just taking, some classes. I'm like, well, I'll just take these classes. I'll pay for these classes to see, where I'm going to land in here in a lab. And, they were very distrusting of the biomedical people coming over to plant because they were like, what? Like, how are you going to do that? And I was like, because that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. And, I convinced them with my pitch and my excellence, because remember, I'm a Talladega College graduate first and foremost, and we operate in excellence always. And so I just brought my excellence there. And I remember, like, y'all, it was some challenges. Like, I had some real crazy challenges, like unbelievable stuff. Like, so I'm doing my student loan stuff, and all of a sudden I can't get access. And I was like, what's going on? Well, the National Student Loan Clearinghouse thing said, oh, she's dead.
Oh, what? What? What?
Well, this person is not alive, so I had to get back alive so I could get into the fall classes. I was like, oh, okay. I was dead. I had to be resurrected. It was a whole thing. And I was like, and it took a while. So I came into the class at midterm. I had like 2 weeks to midterm, but I can whoop a book. I'm coming from UAB. Hey, listen, I can swing the bat. Let's go. I'm going to bring them all in. All bases loaded. I'm bringing them. So they were unsure. They were like, what? I was like, listen, I can do this. So the instructors sent me the PowerPoints. I went through everything. They told me what the textbook information was, but I know the drill. And I was actually the only person who passed.
Oh,
Wow.
bravo.
Right.
And they had to take another test. And I was determined. And I was very aggressive because I was coming from a place where, hey, I don't know how they're going to grade this, but I know it's survival of the fittest because they graded on the standard deviation over there, and man, that's just cutthroat.
Yeah.
Because at UAB, I would record lectures, and then I would drive. It'd take me an hour to get home because of traffic, hour plus. So I would listen every moment. If I'm washing dishes, I'm listening. Whatever it's in me. And so I make all these little flashcards. I'm asking myself questions all the time. On the weekends, even if there was no test coming, I would be up 20, 32 hours, like the test was tomorrow, because that's what you have to do if you're going to get a doctorate.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it takes to represent Talladega College adequately. That's always on your mind whenever you go somewhere, is representing that Alpha Laura Vega. So I was up. So when they said, hey, test, I was ready. And, they would give us these books at UAB. And I was used to just writing pages, and they give you 1 point.
Jeez.
0 points. Like they were not playing. And so although the rigor is there at A&M, it wasn't like what they were doing for us at the biomedical level. And they really take their time at A&M, and they progress the students and they challenge them at different levels. But I was just coming from the war zone, so I I didn't need that help. I'm coming from the war
Mhm.
zone. Look, I've been on the front line and y'all doing
Right.
what? Hey, let's go. Um, but they smile and pat you on the back and they real nice to you at A&M and they whooping you with a book too. It's just that, it was a different form, but I was the only one that passed that test. I'll never forget that. But when they find out that you can do something at A&M, then they push you some more. And they're like, yeah, that's good, but wait a minute, it's nice, nice, but there's more. So they just keep pushing you and pushing you and pushing you. And so I'll never forget my chair, my advisor. He became my chair advisor because if he asked us to write a page, I wrote five. If he said write 5 pages, I wrote 15, 20. And so he was like, okay, I'll take this student. I don't really have a place for her. Her skill set is so varied. And you guys, a marketing queen. You better not tell me that something is possible because I heard sink your teeth into it like a bulldog. Don't let go until you get what you're after. Don't take the first no. They're telling somebody yes. Hang on till you get one of them. Yes, ma'am. So every single paper, if I'm in, a plant biology class, if we're doing ecology, if we're doing plant diseases, if it's anything plant, if it's anything genetics, anything, I'm talking about resveratrol. And I remember just riding up the road to class to A&M one day, and I was like, you know what? I want to do something fun, because I've been doing some of the most difficult science because it's related to babies that die. All babies that have horrible developmental issues. This is not a happy moment. The research that I was doing would prevent babies from going to the grave. It would, they and some of them they would stay alive, but they wouldn't have that same quality of life that normal healthy babies would have. And that's a lot because my PIs would come in, my principal investigators, they would work all night long with these babies, and then they would come into the labs, and sometimes they would have these samples, cord samples from the mothers that had delivered these babies, and so that was a different research trial that we were doing, and you could see in their faces the anguish that they carried and the hope that they wanted us to produce in those labs, and it was just a very, very heavy time. And biomedical research people are very aggressive. They don't get a lot of times to be happy about their research because they're pushing on to the next thing and they're punching through to solve human riddles of disease. And I'm so thankful and grateful for the dedication for people at the bench because I was there. I had experienced it where, you got these 24-hour time points. You're just there. I don't leave. I remember leaving the house at 5:30 or 6 o'clock and I get back the next day. Literally, I come home just
Wow.
long enough to get the kid. So it's serious over there when they're doing biomedical research. Some of those studies is just that's what it takes. And the dedication is just phenomenal and I appreciate that. But I wanted to do something that was going to be fun and that would be preventative. And so I thought about that resveratrol. I thought about that class with Shannon Bailey, mitochondrial basis for human disease, and it is the foundation of the dissertation work that I produced because it is about managing health from a cellular level as opposed to looking at it at organ level. You want to recover at the cell so that you don't see this full-on tissue or organ failure. And I thought about, well, what's a grape? I thought about eating muscadines, and when I started doing my preliminary investigation, um,
I turned them
it was
off.
just full of
I turned
nutrients,
them off.
very sugar grapes. And so that was the grape that I chose, and I needed to use my skill set from the lab that I had acquired at UAB. Didn't want to like just go there and start completely over. So I'm a bench scientist. I've been trained to do genetics. I've been trained to do um, create these genetic primers so that I could, explore the sequences of genes. And I wanted to do that. I found that muscadine produces more resveratrol than any other fruit. It's a superfruit. and absolutely over Vitis vinifera. And I thought, okay, well, I've got to do something with this. I've got to explore this because this is cultural for me. It's fun, and we're talking about wine, but we're talking about the South where you've got religion versus alcohol all the time. And some of us, we'll go in the closet and pray. That's what we gonna drink to. Nobody, so go to the closet and pray. Don't tell nobody. Here your cup too, baby. So
So
I
you
thought, okay, this has got to be the thing. So A&M didn't tell me no because FAMU, Florida A&M University, is known for muscadine research.
Yep.
They have one of the largest research vineyards in the country at FAMU. And Alabama A&M says, start here, go anywhere. You can do anything from right here at Alabama A&M University. And so I decided I would test that. How real is this? So if you talk to me about anything, I'm talking about muscadine, I'm talking about resveratrol, I'm talking about nutrients, talking about protection, I'm talking about recovery, and they couldn't get me off of it. I started reading that too because my brother, I never forget, my brother pushed me in the room, in my mom's room, and you didn't go to their room without knocking. And so he got tired of me. I had these books, y'all. Sammy the Seal, Danny the Dinosaur. And I would just turn to one of those bigger ones and and my brother, I'll never forget, he said, would you please teach me to read? So I've been reading by myself since I was probably about 2.5 or 3 years old, because I remember the ABCs went up on the wall and everywhere I went, letters, words, and I've been on my own. And so I was just like that 2-year-old kid with resveratrol, muscadine, STS genes. So they finally agreed to my project. Shout out to Dr. Srinivasa Rao Manreddy because he was like, hey, look, she won't let it go. This seems like a great idea. Hey, look, just see what she can do with it. Just let her do it. And I don't know if they thought I was going to quit or what, but they didn't say no. And I found myself in places where I never thought I would go. Because the pandemic hit and it took me away from the bench doing the genetic queries on muscadine and these STS genes. And I had to, again, use that toe and pivot. Don't travel.
Mhm.
Don't travel, pivot. Although I did a lot of traveling in my research. I did about 80,000 miles in my dissertation research just driving. That's not the flying too.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot. So when we all got sent home because of the pandemic, and you had one person who could go in the lab per shift, which that was crazy. And at the time, guess what? I am back at UAB because my co-chair is Carolina Mukhtar over in the biology department because I needed somebody who could co-sign on my ability and who was interested in this muscadine research, again, for my marketing campaign to give some credibility for what I was doing for a school who doesn't do muscadine at all. And so she was interested. She chose to be on my committee, and A&M was just phenomenal for allowing me to do that. And I'm ever grateful for what they did for Dr. Stewart. But Dr. Mukhtar is my shero. I'm not a crybaby, but man, when I was driving those 1,500 miles a week from Ole Miss, from the USDA lab, and they were trying to make some final decisions about my project that I just was not in agreement with, and she just held me down. And she's wonderful. She's at Clemson University now, and her husband also was a guest on my panel. and they were very supportive. They're still very extremely supportive of the work that I'm doing. They're excited about this moment that I'm having with you guys. They know about it, so they'll be watching the podcast when it airs. And so cut that part out. Carolyn,
Well, the shorts will come out probably sometime tomorrow. The full, we've got like 3 or 4 full episodes that we still have to edit. So the full episode.
oh no, that's no problem. But they don't want to miss that. And like I said, she was just everything for my project, especially as I got towards the end. Very supportive, critiqued absolutely everything, helped me to pivot. But Dr. Manready, he was like, hey, Jeffrey, you need to collect some soil samples. Let's take this outside because we're all trapped at home. But he was like, outside is open. Like, let's go, let's go outside. And he just left me with that because he had initially told me, he said, you're going to drive your own project. The decisions, you're going to make the decisions. You're going to guide this project. This is your thing. So just do it. And, for to convince people with the credentials that they have with an institution as historic as Alabama A&M, who was led into their modernity by Dr. Drake, a Talladega College graduate. I was right at home. The guiding light, the Alpha Laura Vega, was present at the Alabama A&M University. So I felt all of that decades after his decease. But I felt the energy from my Talladega, and it pushed me. So I said, okay. So I said, how can I make this a credible study that is worthy of interest for not just Muscadine? Because if you're only touching Muscadine, that's a small community. But I want to affect the world with what I do always. And so I said, had read everything literally. I really had. So I said, I randomly selected 4 Muscadine vineyards. Because I said, okay, growth zones map. Let's look at how this would impact a study if I have a commercial vineyard in each one of these 4 growth zones. That's within driving range for me. And we're going to see how the soil differences would impact these grapes, the same cultivars that are grown across these vineyards. And let's look at climate. Let's look at the impact of how that's going to affect these grapes, because it was going to be a long time before I was going to be able to get back into the lab, because the supplies were being sent for PCR, for COVID tests and gloves and just all the things.
Oh yeah,
it was just wasn't there for us. So I had to make this a very monumental study, and it needed to have some teeth, because my mama said, my mama said, sink your teeth into it and hang on like a bulldog till you get what you want. So I said, okay. And I don't want to forget to shout out Dr. Devaya Camaranda. He is over at Southern University and A&M College over in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I lived in Baton Rouge for probably about 4 to 5 months working with him, and had traveled so many times with him. So that's like a 7-hour drive from where I am, although I could, wait a minute, I'm sorry, I'm saying like 8 hours, but I could get there. I could get there. And so, yes, I got to tell you about Devaya. He's amazing, because he was actually at FAMU, and I just emailed him out of the blue because I'm putting my committee together. Because Dr. Manready, he said, just drive your projects. I said, okay, I need to piece my committee together. Okay, Dr. Mukhtar has already said yes at UAB, so that's going to be great. But this guy, I read a paper about him, some things that he had done, and I was like, oh, I want to work with him. He knows all about Muscadine. He's at FAMU. I can, my family is in Dothan. That's 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours away. I can do that.
Mm-hmm. But
he was like, hey, just, hold off. It's going to be good. he had actually taken a position at Southern University and A&M College to start their viticulture program. And so he agreed, sight unseen, not knowing anything about my work in the lab or my ability. He just said yes. He was not a Kappa, but he said, but he said, he had the support like it was. So I was like, yeah. Um, and so he was just very supportive, just always. I mean, it was just that I just walked into this dream after walking out of this nightmare situation where, it's 5 years of all of your work and life and middle of the night and just that grueling process at UAB, it looked like it was going down the drain because I chose not to take a master's out of that program when I left. And, I bet on black because that's the like that look, that's the one you can just put it on the little wheel thing and spin it. And let me see what I get. So it was a huge gamble that I took because I'm sitting here with an unfinished doctorate. And, for a long time, I had no idea. I'm like, how do you sell this? Like my resume, you just, and nobody tells you. And so I was looking at something I saw. I said, ABD. Oh, that's me. All but dissertation because it's all about the marketing for how you present your unfinished product. So it wasn't that I couldn't finish, people ask you about what happened, because, you can look at my transcript. So it wasn't the grades, right? So there was obviously something else. And, again, just the funding, that stuff, when it happens, and that there is no safety net a lot of times for people operating at that level. So I was like, oh wow, this guy just said yes, just like that. So, I just cried. And I'm not a crybaby because tears, that's if you got something in your eye. Yeah. So, they really changed the direction of my life and the information that I got. And I mean, literally, Devaya, Dr. Cameranda would meet me on the weekends. I would drive over if I needed a sample, something, whatever it was. He never, ever, ever said no. Never said no. And one day, I'm gonna give this person a few years, just a few more years, and I'm gonna tell y'all a really funny story about what happened to me at Southern, at Southern University. It's a true wine story. I will let y'all know what it is. But in any case, I did a lot. I had to sort of battle for access to different things because, I had a project that was, they didn't know how this was going to finish. And they were just sort of like still giving me the side eye for real. But Dr. McReady and Dr. Mukhtar believed in me. And I had some great opportunities going out to one of the vineyards, one of the largest vineyards in Tennessee, commercial vineyards in Tennessee, is Solly Notch Vineyard. And the people there, JD is amazing. I know I kind of find me some new words, but I tell people, we live in the South and we got about 15, 20 words we use. And if you get beyond that, we be looking at you. Like, let me get the dictionary. But just truly, when you really there, you don't want to alter the amazing, the fabulous. Like it's just not enough when you start to meet these people when you've been hitting a brick wall so often for so many things. And JD is the vineyard manager at Solly Notch, and they have amazing muscadine wines. I really want to get back on here and talk some more about Solly Notch. Just absolutely great.
Well, no,
Owner,
let's dive deeper into Solly Notch.
yeah,
Hold
Because
on. Let me just ask a question real quick to clarify a few things, please.
Yeah.
So do you grow grapes where you're at right now?
In this container here with the lights,
Ah,
I grow my muscadine in containers because they're like my thermometers for when I go out to these different vineyards. So I know when bud break is going to happen because I'm watching it here.
okay.
I know it happens because I'm watching it here. I have 8 plants in a container that I grow that I monitor. I've been monitoring since 2019, 2018, 2019
Okay.
for this project. And so they're still like my little antennas. And
Mm-hmm.
so it let me know when to go out to see these things, because you cannot reproduce the impact of farming when this is how you eat every day. So yeah, it's great that these institutions have these research vineyards, but we can't care, we won't care as much about these vines as the people who live to eat off of them every day. And so they
Mm-hmm.
take very good care of these properties. They know really every single vine. They have them tagged, and so that was one of the pitches that I gave in my dissertation proposal, was that, these are commercial vineyards. They have a standard established for their viticulture. And I was just it was very beneficial to me that even though I selected these 4 random locations, you guys, nobody fertilized, nobody watered the entire time of my project. And that is just unheard of. So they were already a control. I didn't even have to request anything. So I could just randomize my study of their property. And so I had little antennas identified on their property. So specific vines on specific rows in specific cultivars on each of these 4 properties. And Solid Notch, the reason why I want to mention them is they put me on. Carrie Cox, who is the owner of that property and a absolutely fabulous person. He really is. I was at the farm because I have good manners, because my mama said that when you go somewhere, you make yourself known, you introduce yourself, you acknowledge the people. So I would go to the properties and I would always find the vineyard manager, find the farmer, and let them know that I was on the property and what I was going to be doing that day. I collected my samples, and then I would come back and let them know what I had seen about their property, because there is a lot of times people go out and they do these things and they never have these real intimate relationships with the property owners. They don't know what they're doing, but they're giving you free range. And you guys, it didn't matter if it was a Sunday, no matter what day it was, if they were on vacation, any of those 4 properties, I had the full support of the vineyard managers. I'm gonna tell y'all another funny story about one of those when I come back on here. Um, but they were just very super nice. It, I would go out sometimes and I'd be out there and somebody come out there and they'd be bringing me muffins. My mom baked you some muffins.
Nice.
What?
Nah.
Morgan Creek. Morgan Creek Vineyard. Hey, look, they would give me free muscadine wine slushes. What? And I could sit on the porch and swing after being out there in the heat with my son hat on. They took good care of me. Morgan Creek was so, so fabulous that when I got ready to graduate, they just gave me cases of free wine. They said, you have to share this with people. You've done a lot of work. We appreciate what you have done, bringing us information, bringing some highlight to our property and winery. And they were already doing good business. So they were just being really, I was like, for real? And so I was able to just host, do these wine tastings to benefit, their property, talk about what they were doing there. And so I just, Charlie and them are just really super nice out there. If you get a chance, you can see on their website, Morgan Creek Winery and Vineyards in Shelby County, Alabama. I'll send you guys a list of places to log on to. But
So,
Carrie Cox asked me to do a talk for the biggest ag conference in Tennessee. Would you do a talk? Because I came back and I gave him my report. And then, he had all of his workers, they were harvesting at the time. And he heard me answering all these pathological questions and talking about resveratrol and talking about all antioxidant protection and yada, 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 because I'm a trained pathologist. UAB trained me. And he said, my brother graduated medical school from UAB. And I guess he said, you sound just like that. And I said, yeah, I said, that's where I was. And he said, would you do a talk for us? And so for 2 years, 2023 and 2024, I did talks for the state of Tennessee at their PIC 10. I also did a training for them for their extension officers about muscadine. So they really put me on, and it gave me some credibility with Alabama A&M that I wasn't wasting time, I wasn't wasting resources, and that this was really something very productive. And then the state of Alabama I did a talk for them in 2024 as well. So in the same week, I was at Gulf Shores, and then I was in Franklin, Tennessee, and that's like 7 or 8 hours apart. But hey, that was like I said, I could get there. Blake Thaxton put me on. And so it again added some more credibility for the work that I was doing with muscadine and training people about that. There have been a lot of holes there, but I did so much work. My advisor I loved him until he told me while I was driving 1,500 miles a week to try to get my resveratrol data, you got to have a 200-page dissertation. Oh, you got to have 200 pages. You should have said this a year ago.
Yeah, you gotta have.
So you mentioned 4 vineyards. You talked about Sally Notch and Morgan Creek. What were the other 2?
Oh, my other Chateau Elon, north of Georgia.
Chateau Elan, no kidding.
Chateau Elon. It is a very, very beautiful property. Simone Bergis is the manager there, and he is fantastic. And he will probably, if you bring him on here, he will probably share the funny story that I have, because he probably got the voicemail of my funny story. But anyway, yeah. So Chateau Elon is they used to have Vitis vinifera on their property, but of course, it's not going to do well. You only get a few years out of that. So they ripped it out, all of those vines, and put muscadine in, and they transformed the property into something very lovely. It's a very European look, but it is a very Southern quality wine. They have an award-winning muscadine vinifera blend. And they do just very high quality. They're a resort north of Atlanta in Brazelton, Georgia. So that's saying a lot without saying a lot. Just very high quality wines. It's a very high quality experience there. Please check them out. Again, I'm going to send you guys a list. One of my adventures, though, is the 300-acre muscadine vineyard in Mississippi.
300.
Wow.
300
Ooh.
acres of muscadine. And hey, listen, it's truly God's country on 300 acres. You don't think a lot about 300 acres until you riding around.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about the farming aspect of muscadine. Is it the same as vinifera, or do you have to?
It's comparable.
Okay.
It's comparable in a lot of ways. One of the things that you won't have to do a lot with muscadine is you don't have to do a lot of pesticide treatment. You don't have to do a lot of fertilization, and depending on the health of your vines and what the vineyard manager is trying to produce, you won't have to do a lot of water, because when these vines are restricted of water, their grapes get sweeter. According to my study, they get a little smaller. The grape size gets a little smaller, but not much smaller, because it's just still going to be this huge bulbous type of grape. But it is a very resilient plant in the face of all of that. So you still have to do pruning. You don't have a lot of where people have to go in and thin the canopy, because these grapes are so huge. They need a pretty heavy canopy while they're developing. So you don't have people going through having to thin the canopy out for these grapes, because basically you plant them and they got business. Because I saw a lot of different techniques with viticulture with muscadine, and the Mississippi vineyard is huge. Initially, they would produce for a well-known grape grower and wine producer, and they lost some of that business. And so for farming less of their grapes into production, and they were just out there. And so if people just wanted grapes, man, they just go in to shake the vine and they hadn't clipped anything back. They hadn't done any pruning. And when I tell you massive sweet grapes, I have it documented in my study that is my dissertation is going to be released to the public. I gave myself 2 years before the release of my dissertation to give myself time to recoup and write and get it all out. But I do more than what my daddy said. Frank Jr. said, you gotta do more than one thing. So I do about 50 things
Good.
and not neglecting my work. However,
Mhm.
you got to keep the wheel spinning on the other things that you do because I am a biology professor
Oh, wow.
at Stanford University and at two of the community colleges here. I got my pinky finger in a couple of different things. I also have my own consulting service. I do a lot of volunteer work, especially with young people, helping them to manage their careers and how to pivot, how to read the room and survive the old. And so I
Mhm.
know they say, they say HR say you're not supposed to call them old, but they know what their number is. It ain't no new number. So they old. That's the old number you got.
Okay, sis, for these last couple of minutes, because I showed Brian this book by Thomas Munson,
Yeah.
and can you give us like a minute or two on what you know about Thomas Munson?
I don't know. Remind me, what's the name? What's the title of the book? Because I got a bunch of stuff up here. Where am I going with Thomas?
Foundations of American Grape Culture.
Oh gosh, yeah. So, for us in the South, and really for us in the United States, viticulture started in North Carolina, right? So when the Pilgrims landed, not on Pilgrim Rock, Plymouth Rock, but when they landed, um, they had to survive. They had to find what's here because a lot of the terrain was very different for them. But they found these grapes growing along the Scuppernong River in North Carolina, and so you'll have a specific cultivar of grapes that they'll refer to as Scuppernongs, but they are also Muscadine. And so we first started viticulture is as old as our country in North Carolina. So they do have one of the oldest viticulture programs in the country is at North Carolina State. Um, and by the way, I am a member of the North Carolina Grape Growers Association.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
The pandemic put me out there. It pushed me to do a lot of things because I wanted to stay busy. I did so many different webinars and trainings. I was in the lipid disease and research study with the Association of Biochemists and molecular biologists. Like I was doing absolutely everything, and so I was doing these viticulture trainings with the North Carolina Grape Growers Association. And so that program is very, very old. They have helped to develop lots of different cultivars. They have extensive work in growing muscadine from seeds and root tappings. They have done a lot of genetic study, and as well as Arkansas. Arkansas has a great genetics program, as well as Georgia. But North Carolina is absolutely the leader in grape growing and viticulture in our country. And so they mapped out everything. They talked about the soil. There's a lot of uh, definitive work about the soil conditions coming from that foundations. And so everywhere else in the country, in order to be able to navigate the soil scape that we have here, it's come from that directive, from that viticulture textbook, because it's still instrumental, it's still speaking today, it's still the foundation for what we do today, even though we've got the technology. One of the things that we've learned about, even with our technology, is that the early work of scientists has been spot on. Even without genetics, the DNA and the PCR, we are not reclassifying organisms. We're not. At one point, they were really just focused on structural formation of organisms, animals and plants alike. And then they would go back to the labs and they would do this biochemistry. and they were able to classify them by genus and species. And when you get to species, that is the specific epithet. Like these are characteristics that are just exclusive to this particular organism. So again, like I said, the science that we have done with previously has just been supported by the new technology. And so we're still living off of that textbook and that manual. And we've got lots of different, we've got over 300 muscadine cultivars now. If you know anything about muscadine, then you know that Isom's is one of the premier places in Georgia where people get muscadine when they want to plant. I will tell you this, that the mother vine is also located in the Carolinas. And so if you've not seen the mother vine, that's a muscadine vine that's hundreds of years old. It's still out there doing some doings. I had some really old vines in my study as well. Morgan Creek had vines that were about 30 plus years old and they were still producing. And so if you're good to muscadine, muscadine will be good to you. And so that's the other reason I like this plant. Is very, very, it's a very strong plant. It's kind of like what my mama said. Hold on. Sink your teeth
Guys,
into it.
you have experienced my sister, Jeffrey Stewart, when I met her in Missouri. Literally, we went on a riverboat, and by the end of the riverboat trip, everybody on that boat, because she ended up on the stage with a magician who's part comedian, part magician. By the end of that boat, we could not leave the landing area of the boat because everybody was stopping her. And they kept saying, "Where are you from again?" "I'm from Alabama."
Look,
So-
they thought I was a part of the show. I was like,
Yeah, they did not know. They swore up and down that they had planned that whole show. And there's a part in the show when the magician didn't know what to do, and he just had this look on his face like. But that was that. But I thank you, Jeffrey, because I wanted to make sure I got an hour because you came on at 9:15. We got an hour.
We gotta get a part 2 scheduled though.
Yeah, but no, what I'm thinking about doing is a part 2 where Jeffrey, you can hook us up with the folks over at Solid Notch, and maybe we can do you and JD on on one of them.
okay, sure, that's great because they have a great tasting room there. I've been in the tasting room. But you
Right.
guys, I want to say that I have this wine here that was given to me. Let me turn this the right way. Okay. This is a wine. You can see that. Can y'all see that? This is a muscadine wine. So when people find out that you do wine, they hook you up with other people who do wine. And this Omega guy is.
Quit
He
bringing
makes
up
this-
other
people-
fraternities, woman.
They give you one to do the shout outs. I don't want to lose no friends. But this guy, Ty Shorter, I told him, I said, "Hey, your wine, I'm going to feature your
Ty Ray
wine
Shorter.
on this podcast tonight." And he was so excited. He was like, "Oh my gosh," because he makes some amazing wine. He gifted me about 7 or 8 bottles of wine for Christmas that he made, and he makes an amazing muscadine wine. The way I got hooked up with him was a buddy of mine. He said, "Hey, my frat is looking he needs some muscadine grapes. Can you hook him up?" And of course, you know, the Muscadine Guru, I always come through. I got him a local guy. I'm like, "Hey, he's got several different cultivars and and then you can always go to the freezer over at Solid Notch. You can just go pick out what you want, taste it. And then, because I called JD said, "Well, how many truckloads do we need?" I said, "Just grow, just get small bottles. He was ready to go."
So where's he located?
Tyrone, he's in Birmingham, and so this is just his own personal hobby, but he does a great job. He's retired, and so this is what he wanted to do, but he's serious about it. He's got carboys, as you can see. He's got a real cork in here. Just a fascinating gentleman. And I said, you can be on the podcast. I said, don't worry, we won't show your face. We only worry about the glasses anyway for our prayer closet. We need some for the prayer closet.
Okay, sis. Thank
Chuck.
you.
Chuck, before we leave,
Go ahead, bro.
I want to say that I probably had a little bit too much wine on this podcast, so I do apologize. I do apologize for that. Dr. Stewart, I definitely loved your story. I was thinking about
yeah, I remember that bottle, sis. I remember that bottle.
Yes.
Look,
you should do like a
I got
documentary
this from
on her.
somebody down Southwest Alabama. They'll send you some stuff from the friends. The friends are brave. And you can see this one has been well appreciated. Look, this one tasted like a muscadine liquor. It was like a whiskey because they had let it ferment. So I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, we gotta talk. We gotta do some tastings and I'm gonna have to come and visit because you guys, you can't explain it. It's a completely different vibe all the way around. And I think that when you get the good muscadine, it's a different thing. And I'll just tell you this. I was gifted some muscadine moonshine.
Ooh, I want to try that.
They said it might peel your skin back, so
Yeah, I
I've
told
been
Brian.
waiting for the skin to be peeled back moment when I just really need to go and yank it off.
Yeah, I told Brian that's like it's like grappa, where it takes your breath away.
I want to try
listen,
some of that.
Okay, it's like yes, look, sips. We just doing sips. Or as they say, a little taste, just a little taste.
Hey, Chuck, I was going
Looking
to
Thank
say,
you
forward to it.
guys.
yes,
Thanks,
Thank you.
sis.
yes,
Can't
thank
wait
you.
to see you guys again.
Thank
All right.
you.
Good
Well, thanks for
night.
your time,
Night.
Miss Yu. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. All right. All right, y'all.
Take care, man.
Y'all too. All right.